do me a favour. If you're listening to this, please hit the subscribe button. Like, share, rate, review the podcast. It really does mean more than you realise.
So it's 30 years this year since I was in a fire, and I think from the 30 years beyond that point, I was just running into life like head on to kind of almost make up for the stuff that I felt that I'd lost in life. You know, I was never actually on fire, but I was trapped in a garage and had to fight my way out and stuff, and managed to do that. My mum was in the front of the ambulance. My dad was still in the UK and had to fly over. I died like twice on the way. That they stopped they told my mum they were just changing drips and stuff, but really I was flatlining in the back of the ambulance. You know, I was in a coma when I first got there, then I brought out the coma, then it was written across my file in massive red writing, allergic to penicillin. Someone didn't read it. They administered penicillin on me. I nearly died again, so they had to put me back into a coma for another 7 or 10 days. No, not that first day. That first day, hands down, was the hardest day of my entire life. So forget all the massive operations and this and that, and you know, the actual day happened itself. That day was the hardest day. You know, this 30-year journey of me kind of not running away from, you know, the accident that happened to me at 14, but I was like, wow, you've had an amazing ride now, and it was like I just stopped and paused. And if I think of it visually, I imagine the scene in Forrest Gump where Tom Hanks is running, and he's running and running and running and doesn't really know why he's running, and he's not really running away from anything. He's just running and he's thinking, and then one day he's in the middle of the desert and he just stops and he turns around and there's just all these people behind him, and I stopped, I think, in January this year, and I turned back, and just for the first time really kind of looked back with great pride in, bloody hell, Mark, you've actually done all right and you've achieved quite a lot. And I stopped, but then I also saw the people behind me, you know, that I've gathered along the way, and the incredible network I had, and I was like, okay, yeah, you've now got into that place in life where you're not going to do something purposeful because you feel like you need to justify what's happened to you. I felt like over those 30 years got everything that I needed back from life to finally even up the score with what the universe had thrown him when I was 14.
I believe every business owner has a story to tell. Through seeking true, authentic insights about the entrepreneurial journey, I provide a platform for our peers to share their stories and inspire those that listen. This is the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. My guest on the podcast this week is a member at Marketing Kind, former MD of 23D and co-founder at Thrive Now, a collective movement connecting a community of people who desire to create a better world by being better, happier humans. Certainly sounds like a movement I want to be part of, mate. So I'm delighted to welcome Marc Convey to the podcast. Mark, how are you, mate?
I'm very well. I'm delighted to be here, Sam. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate, look, absolutely. I know, obviously, we've met during being both members at Plus X, and it's been great to sort of chat to you over the time. I know we've been trying to get this in the diary, so, mate, absolutely buzzing to have you on. And look, we're gonna jump straight in. Just sort of tell the listeners a little bit about your story and where it all started.
Oh, I mean, where do we start? I'm a South London boy, so I was born in South London, and then my parents moved just a little bit out to Croydon. So really, I'm a Croydon boy, but I try and say South London. So, both my parents were Irish immigrants, met in London. Had 4 of us. So I've got 2 sisters and an older brother. I'm number 3 in line, and very, very standard, happy childhood. Both my parents are Catholic as well, so I was brought up in the church. You know, I was an altar boy and stuff like that, just because it gave me something to do. Like going to mass each Sunday. Very lucky to have good education. You know, that was one of the things, being Catholic, you know, whether or not you kind of agree with the way the education is structured or not. So it's good that I didn't have to go to the kind of the normal state schools around me. I got a better education. Generally it was a happy childhood, you know, up until a point where certain things in life happen, and you know, you get things in traumas and stuff that you need to deal with. Sure. But generally, really good foundation to start life on. So
cool.
Privileged.
And then going on, like, obviously with the businesses and stuff, you've obviously got them. We'll delve into them a little bit later. But talk to, like, from a young age, did you always sort of think about running your own business? Was that always part of your mindset?
I don't think at a very young age. No, I think I probably had the basic sort of characteristics in terms of just not always wanting to do what I was told, and but that was more about just like a freedom of thought. You know, if I thought someone was wrong for the sake of it, being anyone, an authority, teachers or something, then it'd be like, well, why? Let's have a debate about that. And the kind of, well, just because I told you, you know, kind of mentality didn't really agree with me. So I'm not sure that even at that age that I would have been someone that I could, or if someone maybe had that opinion on me, and a teacher would be like, well, I'm not sure he's going to be the best employee. Maybe he's the one that needs to sort of come up with the ideas and kind of run with ideas. Yeah, that sense of freedom of running your own business and the endless possibilities. I think that was in me from a young age. But no, I don't think it was even in the psyche of our education back in the 80s and 90s that you're going to grow up and be a business. It's just like, are you going to be a fireman? Are you going to be a policeman? Are you going to be, you know, that kind of stuff. So
strange, isn't it? Because I often talk about that, like that process of like how entrepreneurship is really encouraged in schools now. A lot more than it was back then, and I think had it been a bit more, would I have started on my business journey earlier, or would I have started my own? Because I just feel that, exactly that, like you said, there was a bit of a, you're going to go to university and get a degree and then get a job, or you're just going to come straight out of school and go and get a job, and then that'll be it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever that looks like. And it's great that I guess like you said, listening to you talk about having quite a curious mind. That's what it seems like. Especially people often say that with entrepreneurs and business owners, that you're constantly asking questions and want to find out more, and that inquisitive mind then leads to...
Definitely. And I think my parents are quite safe and quite solid. And, you know, they're kind of, you know, warriors by heart, I think. So for them and they grew up in an era where you got a job for life. So you know, like, it was a shock when, you know, my dad got made redundant after so long in a company and stuff like that. So the world was going through a lot of changes, I think, in terms of, you know, the manufacturing industry coming down and all these things, and lots of strikes. So, but they were still of the old mindset, I think, is, you know, education, university, get a job, you know, have a pension, be secure, don't take too many risks. But I think my way of rebelling was to not worry and to be a risk taker, and to do so. That was the way that I think as a child wanted to be different from your parents for. Sure. And actually, thinking back, I did used to have a emergency pound that my mum used to give me, and on many occasions I would, just in case I lost my passport so I could get the bus back, I would take that into a sweet shop and buy like 10 wham bars or 10 refreshers, or if it was a really hot day, buy 10 ice poles and take them into school and sell them for twice as much, and then put a pound back in my pocket and have a pound to spend on sweets on the way home to myself. So I did that a lot. So maybe there was a little bit in there. Yeah. Now that you bring it up, that kind of that comes
it's
to
still
mind.
There. That entrepreneurial spirit was there early on. Mate, you mentioned a little bit about trauma and stuff, and I want to go back to obviously when you're 14 and obviously suffered some sort of severe burns. Just, are you okay? Just talk a little bit about that incident, and obviously afterwards. And
man, we can dig into it as much as you want. Mate, I've definitely gotten to and we'll kind of talk about this, I think, a bit more later on, at a different place in my mind this year. Something changed in me, a change in energy that I was able to, I think, for the first time, sort of look back on. So it's 30 years this year since I was in a fire, and I think from the 30 years beyond that point, I was just running into life like head on, to kind of almost make up for the stuff that I felt that I'd lost in life. It turned me into an absolute go-getter, and I was going to go and get my better life and have my adventure and my fun, and I led to all sorts of different adventures. And it was this year as a point where I was like, it's like I just stopped. And I think Mo Gadwat mentioned this. I know you've probably heard him on the Stephen Bartlett. You know,
absolutely.
He's just incredible. And he said something in one of his podcasts that he referenced that he'd written, that often it's people who go through traumatic experiences, they get to 30 years after it, and all of a sudden it makes sense to them. Something balanced up this year. So a long way around saying I'm more than comfortable sort of delving into as much as you want.
Well, let's just talk, because obviously it's usually involved in a fire, and then just talk to me a little bit about as you sort of come out of that, and being a teenager in that sort of suffering severe burns. What was life like then after that? Like that, where was your mindset sort of at really?
I mean, in one respect, it's horrendous at 14 years old. Just coming into puberty, having to suffer like quite severe burns. But then on the flip side of that, because you're still growing as a human being, that you're able to still put the character building blocks within you. I think if it had happened to me when I was 20 or 21 or 22, then I'm a full grown adult, and it's harder to pick up a language at that age. It's harder to learn new things. That's because we're still growing and we're still learning. So I think I was at that growth surge of my life going through puberty where I was still able to create incredible foundations of my character that have just like stood the test of time and enabled me to go and live the most incredible life in my eyes. So, but that doesn't mean it wasn't absolutely, horrendous. And, it's like, kids out there don't play with caps and matches around cans of petrol. It was a stupidly childish thing that happened. And, I was on holiday in Ireland as well. So I was staying at my uncle's house, which was my parents weren't staying there. So, and it was in the middle of the countryside in Ireland. So, I was never actually on fire, but I was trapped in a garage and had to fight my way out and stuff, and managed to do that. I had some crazy near-death experience that maybe if I come back on the podcast, we'll get into that. Maybe that's not one to get so deep into now. But it's something I've also thought a lot about this year. So I had to get to a regional hospital, and then they then had to get me to Dublin. And my mum was in the front of the ambulance. My dad was still in the UK and had to fly over. I died twice on the way. That they stopped they told my mum they were just changing drips and stuff, but really I was flatlining in the back of the ambulance. But I made it to Ireland, and I was there for I think 2 or 3 months before I came back to England. That was a pretty bad time in Ireland. The care wasn't maybe. There's a lot of things that they could have done better, kind of looking back at it. A lot of things that, someone at 14 maybe shouldn't have had to go through some questionable decisions. And I felt quite out of control. For example, I'm not going to pull up everything, but, I was in a coma when I first got there. Then I brought out the coma. Then it was written across my file in massive red writing, allergic to penicillin. Someone didn't read it. They administered penicillin on me. I nearly died again, so they had to put me back into a coma for another 7 or 10 days. Then to cope with the amount of pain and dressing changes that I was going through, they were just pumping me full of morphine, and I got addicted to that. So then I had to cold turkey me off morphine. So I was 4 days going through cold turkey, hallucinating, walking up and down corridors. I have a couple of flashback memories from those 4 days, but my mum spent all but 4 hours by my bedside during those days, and I think they were probably the 4 hardest days of her life. So a lot of trauma for her in that, but all that kind of fuels motivation to her to just get my parents to get me back to England. And so I had to take a commercial flight and ambulance right up to the front door. And when I got back to England and I went into Roehampton, it was a game changer. It was honestly, it was I jumped forward 20 years in terms of attitude and care, and so then that was but then it started crazy amounts of operations and stuff like that, and recovery and physio, and and I was in there.
How long was the period of obviously recovery then from that, and then I guess getting back into some form of normal life, going to school again, and
well, I think I had about 30 operations over a period of about 2 3/4 years, something like that. So the first 6 months really intensive, and then they tried to have all my operations scheduled to school holidays so that I could get back to school quickly. I went back to school after 6 months, so it's relatively quickly, really. But I tell you what, I was unbelievably determined not to drop back a year. I kind of took control of, and this may be kind of answering one of your follow-up questions, but when I got back to England and realised I felt very much out of control what was happening in Ireland, when I got back to England, it's right, I'm taking charge now. So it was weird that I kind of look back now, and I I joked with one of my co-founders, Arinjay, who we'll talk about later, last week, that I said I felt like I became the CEO of my own like recovery and my own company. So it's like, it was almost like Marc Convey Incorporated, you know, and it's like, I have to take charge here. I was like, I want to know everything that's happening to me, why that's happening to me. I want to be the one making the final decisions. And
at a young age like that, where does like, was you, like you said, I guess you alluded to the fact that you was always quite curious and asking questions and stuff like that anyway, but even like prior to the incident, what, like, did you have that sort of, that drive, that determination was you always sort of along?
I think I was in different contexts. Yeah, I think I was probably to the point too competitive, you know, ridiculously competitive sports, or just even wanting to get to the door first. It's like battle my sister for the crispiest roast potato on Sundays. It was like everything was competition, and I think that may be in ways a bit of an annoying kid at times. And I was always like wanted to be into everything, know everything that was going on, question, understanding. But I think that real sort of competitive drive, suddenly you put that into a different context, and then you look at your situation, and then I think without even realizing, I gamified it as well, and I think that helped detach me from reality slightly. You know, sometimes you need to suppress certain things, put them in a box, deal with them later because there's more pressing things to deal with. So I was, all of a sudden I was able to use that competitive drive I think that I already had, and apply it to my recovery. And hating, you know, having like, you know, I used to clash with teachers. My primary school report card is like it's a yo-yo of up and down on a graph, and it was all whether or not I had a really good teacher who understood and empathic, and suddenly I was like, you know, near the top of the class, to suddenly a teacher that would just tell you to do it for the sake of doing it. And I just battled with people like that because I didn't get that. So then when I was in Ireland, I was just like seeing people making decisions, and I felt completely out of control. So then it was at that point, you know, I had, you know, something to base it off the back of, like, I'm never letting that happen to me again. So when I go to England, I'm going to be like, I'm going to be the one in control, and I'm going to know everything, and they're going to know that I'm the boss of my own recovery, and I'm almost going to put them into board positions to help me recover. And, you know, my mum just empowered that. She was incredible. You know, she gave everything to become my carer, and she had my back from the moment one, and she would not let people talk to her. You know, when they come in, they often would, you know, talk to the parent, right, this is what we're going to do. Mark's going to have 3 operations. No. Talk to Mark. He's the one. And so that was pretty special.
That's amazing as a parent, because you part of being a parent that you just want to protect your children as much as possible, and but even at that stage, to be able to go, no, I'm going to allow him to find his own path here. I'll support him and hold his hand all the way, but I'm going to allow him to make his own decisions. And because there's part of you as a parent, you just go, well, I'm going to take control of this situation, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and this is going to be how it's going to go. But to empower you to do that, even at that young age as well, that's an amazing thing from a parent.
But I think I also needed to take some of the burden of her as well. I think we always, and I think that's one of the things I've kind of even thought about more this year, you know, when something happens to an individual person, it's just not them that's affected, it's everyone around them, right? So I think I had the kind of the awareness and the empathy to realise that it's a hell of a burden on my mum as well, and she's always got to be the one that's got to keep smiling and be up and and it's got to be, you know, tough for someone to go through that. So if you can take some of that responsibility, you know, off her shoulders, then that's something that could do. I think I wish I'd maybe, actually I never wish to change the past, but I could have had more awareness maybe of how it was affecting other people around me, siblings and stuff like that, because you take away a lot of the kind of resource and the positive energy that it goes into me. Suddenly I'm the focal point of the entire family, extended family, you know, the community through the church my parents took me to, or my school, you know. Suddenly I became like the man in those kind of ways, and it's just so definitely there was probably some, you know, fallout from that I definitely think about more now today than I did at the time.
Mate, thanks. So, I mean, look, it's to go through, people say like people go through traumas in their life, and then somehow, you know, some people take one direction, some people take another, and just listening to you talk and knowing, as we've spoken previously as well, like that your positive outlook on life and how you look at stuff and you, like you said, being a go-getter and wanting to go and chase stuff and go, not let something that's happened to you stop you from doing anything that you wanted to go. And but it's an amazing thing. I think what the level of self-awareness at a young age, even like you're talking about with your mum and saying that sort of situation, that level of self-awareness that I need to take responsibility here and take action to make things better. That's quite an amazing thing to do at that young age. I think like just listening to you talk, I'm really keen to just look at that, like that mindset of going, like that first day you walk back in school. After that, do you walk back in just with an air of confidence about you that I'm just going to go in and I'm going to...
No, not that first day. That first day, hands down, was the hardest day of my entire life.
Really?
So forget all the massive operations and this and that, and you know, the actual day happened itself. That day was the hardest day.
Wow.
The build up to that, you know, because I had to really battle as well to not drop back a year. Like everybody around was saying, there's just no way in the world you're going to be able to, like, entering GCSE, you know, first GCSE year, you're ever going to be able to do that. And I was like, there is no way in the world I'm dropping back a year. You do whatever you need to do to get me right. And you know, my right hand was so badly damaged as well that I had to learn to write with my left hand. So I had that challenge as well, and not even like a very good left hand. So I had to learn to do that to write. And so I had to get back to school as quickly as possible. But it's tough, you know. I went to an all boys Catholic school. Very, very masculine, like you know, sports was the centre of everything, you know, and all those sports had been sort of taken away from me, and I'm wearing a see-through perspex mask as well that I had to wear for 24 hours a day for 2 years to put pressure on the scar tissue on my face to stop it sort of rising up too much. So not only did I go back, you know, with lots of scar tissue and stuff, but then also, you know, with this plastic perspex, you know, mask on, and I had to have, you know, a teaching assistant as well. So that first day in like January 1993 was the toughest day ever. But I adapted like quite quickly. It's crazy, you know, when you're that age, you're still 14, then you just adapt. We're adaptable as human beings. It makes us so great. So you just create a new reality and a new norm, and you try and adjust as quick as possible. And I was very lucky that it was a school that I was like, you know, whatever happened, like away from, you know, my ears and my eyes, I don't know, but no one dared like mess with me. And you know, it was just, I was out of bounds. You know, you were like out of school if anyone even touched, you know, touch mark sort of thing. So, and I had just the most ridiculous friends around me. You know, people that just, you know, I've got, you know, two or three friends that I've had for 40 years and just became like, my henchmen in a way. So it took a period of adjustment, and then I was still going to like physio 4 days a week. So I was part-time. I had to like drop down to 5 GCSEs, learning to write with my left hand, typing what I could. Had one of like the earliest laptops that they got from me. It was like honestly, it probably weighed as much as this desk. It's ridiculous. But it was but you know what, it got better, you know. It did, and again I kind of gamified it a bit, and I kind of knew I had this certain level of power all of a sudden, you know. So, and you just, you know, selfishly just tap into that because it's what you need at the time. It's not a long-term thing. It's kind of a short-term drug that you tap into to give yourself that energy, that boost you need to grow that extra little bit that you just need to get through that difficult period of your life, and then you can take a step back and reassess.
Right. Amazing. Like I say, thanks for sharing that, mate. And like I say, it's inspiring to hear that part of your journey, and it's fascinating as well. It's interesting to see this next stage now and where you sort of come. Because I've read, obviously, listening to you talk and following you obviously on social media and stuff as well. I noticed obviously coming out of obviously you graduated, and you put in your thing about you had that something in your head that you didn't want to work for the man. You wanted to run your own business. You wanted to be the man. But again, alluding back to that drive and determination, then this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and do these things. Do you think, like you said, that trauma was the thing that was the catalyst to that?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think there was a couple of sort of like key steps in between before I kind of like went out into the world. So just sort of taking us back to the school days a bit. Very good sixth form at my school, but I felt like that I was wrapped up in cotton wool too much. So I'd gone back to school and somehow I managed to get the GCSEs I needed, 5 GCSEs. So it was a kind of like, that was like a super proud moment. But I think I'm even prouder of the fact that come 16, I decided to leave my school and go to a local mixed sixth form college, still wearing the Perspex mask and stuff. And everyone was just like, and even like my parents initially were like, you can't do that. You've got like,
what made you do? What
I thought
the process behind that?
I thought that I'm going to become too soft. I'm wrapped up in too much cotton wool. People are looking after me too much. At one point, I'm going to need to stand on my own 2 feet. And if I don't learn to do that as soon as possible, then what hope have I got? I was desperate to want to go to university, and I just thought, if I stay at John Fisher, nothing's going to change. I'm going to be there another 2 years. All's going to be fine. But I then have to make the leap and go to university. And I thought that I need a stepping stone before that. I need to stand up and prove myself. If I can do this now, then I can do anything. So weirdly, the hardest day of my life was that first going back to school. But the proudest day of my life was when I then left John Fisher and made that decision. And all the teachers were trying to rally around me and say, no, you can't, and we want you to stay here, we're going to look after you through the next 2 years, blah blah blah, you're still going through recovery. And I was just like, no, and convinced my parents. And then when I made the decision, my 2 best mates, Brendan and Will, who known for 40 years, they were like very well thought of in the school, good sports players in the rugby team, didn't get in any trouble, exactly the sort of kids that you want to stay on for sixth form college. And they were like, if Mark's leaving, we're going with him. So it's just like I stood up and left, and then my boys came with me, and I went to the local sixth form college, and that was a huge step forward for me in terms of, okay, the world's not that scary out there. I can find the place within this world. I can do that. And then had brilliant time at John Ruskin, my local college. It was brilliant, and I was obviously evolving and learning, and I was very lucky that I had a certain skill set, gift of gab and a quick wit and stuff like this, my Irish kind of background, that kind of that humour, and I just had the best time there.
What's brilliant about listening to that, something that I think so many people will hopefully take away from this, and something that we tap into, I guess, as entrepreneurs and business owners a lot, ultimately, to grow as individuals, to grow as a business, whatever that is that it's great to stay within that comfort zone, but you don't learn and you don't evolve as a person. But again, I'm going back to your age as well, but just having that level of self-awareness to go, I can stay in this little comfort zone where everyone's looking after me, and it'll be an easier path than it will be to jump out of that comfort zone, push myself and go in there. Like, that's incredible to look at that at what, 16 then, just about to start college, to go again that level of it just strikes me along the path, and as we'll talk about a little bit further on as well, that level of self-awareness that you seem to be able to have. And
I think it's easy to look back through some self-awareness lenses. I think at the time a lot of it was instinctive. I wasn't sitting down and analysing and making a pros and a con list. It's easy for me to sit back and now and pick out these details that we're sharing now. I'm a very instinctive person as well, so I think a lot of it was just trusting my gut, and that's something that I've done a lot through the years. I've had to go to some real depths inside me to figure some stuff out, because there was no blueprint for what I was going through. There was no one that I could go and ask to figure this out, because no one had the answer to it, and no one had gone through what I'd been through. So from a very early age, I realised that, and this is like a lot of what I'm doing now with my the future endeavours and stuff, is kind of knowing that the answers are on the inside, and with all these learned experiences, you kind of build up your instincts and your gut, and even if you can't put a finger on why you're doing something, you kind of know you're doing it for a certain reason. But I was also incredibly lucky that all those things wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have the support network around me and the people that I could tap into, friends and family and teachers and the wider community. And it's, you can't be an island, and I'm a massive fan of like collaboration and feeding off people and those ideas. So I was able to kind of make these big decisions knowing that I had a safety net of incredible people around me, and I'm super fortunate with that.
That's amazing. And look, we share, I think one of the reasons we get on, we share similar values around that in collaboration, community, and what that looks. I think certainly, if anything we've learned from the last 2-3 years with COVID is the power of community, and our, having a strong network and people around you can help you survive and thrive and go forward, because we can't do things necessarily on our own, and it is something that by having that, like you say, a support network, and it's interesting to see that relating, obviously even sort of back then, but it's incredible. And I want to, because obviously we've mentioned that, and that is that drive and that determination. I want to sort of delve into that. So obviously after that, you've come out of that comfort zone, you've gone into and obviously college, and then on to graduate, etc. But then you come out of that and still, again, another bit I read about, which I found fascinating, was that you waited sort of 15 years then before that sort of 23D and stuff. But because I think I've made a note here that you put on it, people do business with people, and what did I know about people? Not enough. So I travelled.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
love that. Like that again, sort of. I'm going back to that self-awareness thing at that age. Like, you just gone, I'm not ready to start my own business. I'm going to go and explore the world and find out. Talk to me a little bit about that and the things you learned then.
Yeah, because I think when I went to Bristol Business School at University of West of England, and the idea was, I was going to go through there and then maybe try and find a job in the city or something like that. I just thought that was a natural progression. I really wasn't thinking too far and looking at the world, because at that point it was like, as much as that kind of career element, I was still on the learning to be me and to breaking out of a small town like Croydon, kind of getting away from the naturally sort of worrying guilt of the Catholic kind of upbringing. It was like, for me, it was all quite narrow-minded. And then I went to university. I was like, wow, there's people from all over the country with different viewpoints here. I kind of love this. I started really then thinking about my view on the world became all of a sudden a little bit wider.
Yeah, sure.
And then a big changing moment was, again, it was another tough time. I had to go to have a placement in my third year. So I was going back, a bunch of us going to interviews in London, and I think I got turned down from like 4 or 5, and one of them, the feedback was, you got too much empathy to be able to survive in the city. And I was just like, huh. And that really made me start. And it was I think that was like the last job I could have got in that group of interviews. And then all my friends had got jobs in the city, got a house together, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have a placement. Maybe I'm not fit for this. Maybe I want to do this. And I was just like, I don't really want to like lose these. At the time, no one really valued soft skills or human skills, as I like to call it, and my level of empathy and the way I had to deal with people, the kind of skill sets that I had to develop just to cope with what I was been through and was going through. And I was just like, that kind of really shocked me. And I was like, okay. But it's weird, because then one door closes, another door opens. I managed to get a placement back near my parents' house. I then moved back in with them for a year, but it means I'm not paying rent. I can save money. At the end of the year, I have enough money to go to Central America for 5-6 weeks before I go back into my final year. Game changer,
really?
Honestly, game changer for me. Going out there and seeing this like other cultures and stuff, in the middle of like Guatemala and Honduras and Mexico and Belize, and learning to dive, and it was just like, holy moly, there's a whole world out there. And then also just whenever I go somewhere, it's all about the people for me as well. So interaction with the people, finding out, and at that point in my life, I think I was going through trying to question the way that you were brought up and stuff, and I realised that, wow, there's all these people all around the world that brought up with completely different like values and different society, and it's like, how do we know that we've got it right? They might have it right. They got less money than us, but they're really happy. Like, what's going on here? And it just like, it really kind of opened my mind up. And all of a sudden I was like so thankful for that, for those people that turned me down. And if I'd like ended up, you know, gone in a city where like what path would I have gone down? So it's a bit of a, you know, serendipity moment in my life. So then I came back and my final year was all about, so then I guess I was thinking, okay, now I don't want to work for the man. I don't want to go into the city. I don't want to become part of this, you know, juggernaut of a system. I need to figure out like what I'm going to do, but I don't know what that is yet. But I want to know more about people, and I want to know more about how they act. I want to see the world. So therefore, it's just go back, motivated to get my degree, to then to save up money and be a bit cheeky with the bank to get a bank loan. It's I got a permanent job, and then said I needed a car for my job, got the money for the car, quit my job, bought a round the world ticket, and off I went. It's like, worry about that later. Wow. And I just went off traveling, and just purposely kind of allowed myself to drift for a few years, like post uni. And again, in my mind, I was like, I'm just still getting mine back, you know. The universe is universal God, or whoever you want to say, is like, it's taking so much away from me. It's like, I'm gonna go and get mine back, and not in a like crazy selfish way, but just, well, I guess a little bit selfishly, but not at the cost of anyone else. It's like, this is what I want to do. I want to travel. I want to find out more about the world, how the world works, how people work, how we interact with each other, how we're brought up, question everything, and have a lot of fun along the way.
And what an amazing education that is, because I'm really keen to, like, I wanted to go back a little bit as well and talk about with the education side of stuff. It's really interesting listening to you talking about soft skills and empathy, which is something I sort of obviously I buy into as well. I class myself as a people person. You think,
I can see that,
and you go, but I think both of us are. So you look at that and you look at those. And what I found interesting, you mentioned a while back about saying with the school, even within school, with the teachers that you responded to were people that did show you empathy, and the people that didn't have those soft skills, you didn't respond well to them. You sort of rebelled against them. So it's interesting that you've got that in your nature, and that's what you respond. And I think like there's still such a strong narrative around, like, you know, being a big businessman and what that looks like, and you know, you've got to be this really hard-nosed businessman to be a success. You can't necessarily. I often talk about it when I had the salon. I went in. I was completely not myself for 3 years because I was trying to be this guy who was a boss. I'm a boss. I'm running this business, and you know what I mean. That's just not me. I wanted to get on with people. I'm a people person. I want to be able to do that, and I find it really interesting. But from the education side of it, how do you? Because these are the skills that we don't teach at school. You don't get a GCSE in people skills, do you?
No.
But what are your thoughts around the education system and how it is at the moment?
I think it's ripe for disruption. I think we haven't innovated much in the last 40 years, but then really the innovation even in the last 40 years is based off a Victorian kind of like way of teaching people. I think all we're doing is with, you know, a national curriculum and the way our teachers and the way it's funded is just, all they can do is just to it's like game theory is more important than learning. So it's like what you need to do to pass the exams and to keep your school on, you know, a certain level. So obviously they don't, you know, come in and slap your wrist and stuff. There's less room for freedom of thought, and I don't blame the teachers. I blame the game itself. I'm really passionate about, especially at that age of like 14 to 18. I think that's a really, really like crucial age, and I know from my own lived experiences that you can still add so much to a person's character at that point, and you can still allow them to take charge more of their own futures. So I would love to eventually, down the road, with some of the things I'm working on, would be to really look at the way that we help teenagers transition into adulthood and empowering them to become leaders of their own future. I don't think that they get the right time of careers advice from either their parents or the schools, but I don't think it should be their responsibility to do it. You know, a lot of teachers just have a very blinkered view in the world because they haven't gone out and lived. So many of them just gone to, you know, to uni, qualify into a school, and that's then become their life. parents, a lot of them would be like, well, you know, I didn't go to university, so you're going, or I went, so you're going, and it's not their own fault. I think that a lot of parents don't always evolve to give the right advice for the point that, you know, where the way the world is aligned with their children at that time. They're still living in their own era. So I think there's a way to go in and work directly, you know, with kids, empower them, but do it from a place of like education and love. And too much at the moment, especially when it comes to around anxiety around the planet and stuff like that, it's coming from a place of fear and anxiety. And so it's a big kind of area that I think about a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think like you're right. It's got to change from the top, isn't it? Like you said, it can filter down, and there's elements of it with some great teachers at school, and maybe not some great teachers, but because they're under this pressure to hit these Ofsted marks, and they've got to do this, and it's just so structured in that sense. And of course there's got to be structure. I know we've got to, you know, there's got to be the fundamental basics that people have got to learn. I understand that, but I really feel that there's so much from the soft skills, people skills, life skills that we could introduce into the education system that would actually hold people better for a better future. We could home them with those skills as opposed to just, you know, maths, English, you know what I mean, along those lines.
And it's like, you know, people with neurodiversity, and it's just, it doesn't fit for so many. It's like it's like, you know,
this is one thing, and this is everyone's got to do this.
Exactly. It's like so many people with these like spikes and incredible skills that they're the people that evolve society, that come up with great inventions, that think outside the box and do these things. But then at the very same time, we're saying you've got to fit into this box, and if you can't read the words we've written in, and you can't do your arithmetic, and you can't do that, then suddenly everything else doesn't matter, and you don't fit within the system, and then you can't progress as much. And the amount of brilliant people that are, you know, are falling through the cracks in society, and it's like I'm someone like a massive, you know, sort of supporter of the, you know, the EDI movement, and how that does into the workplace, down into education, and how we really invest in the individual and empower the individual and understand and create much more flexible frameworks for people to be able to feel comfortable in their own skin, but also to have the opportunity to learn. So we need a way wider kind of, you know, view on this in terms of how a lot of work needs to be done. And but the problem is, like, education is so underfunded, teachers aren't paid enough, they're super stressed, and it's such a it's so simple if you just look at the wider picture. It's prevention is better than cure, and it's like, why aren't we getting to people younger and really investing the money there? Because then we'll save so much, you know. So many problems later on in society is because of, you know, the lack of the right kind of education for the person when they really need it the most. I completely agree with you, mate. I completely agree.
Look, I want to talk about as well, obviously, just prior to starting, obviously, the company, you know, obviously 23D 2017. Talk to me a little bit about that process prior to that. So you've travelled for a few years, you know, opened your mind, some amazing experiences. Talk to me a little bit about the poker side of things and gaming. Talk to me a little bit about that period just before starting.
So poker was like a massive part of my life for you know, near on 15 years, and it was sort of what gave me the direction in my life, you know, stopped me being the drifter in my early to mid 20s that I was. So when I kind of came back and settled a bit in London, someone taught me the game of poker, and I was like, this is quite good. And I was just playing with friends for fun, and would beat them most of the time, so it was interesting. And then I was like, oh, you can play for free online, I'll do that. And kind of then learnt the rules a lot more and how it all works. And I was like, it's no harm putting $20 online, just see where it goes. And then you know, that $20 turned into $100, turned into $600, turned into $5,000. And I was just like, in a few months I was like, I might not be bad at this game.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, and at the same time I was volunteering for Crisis, the homeless charity. So I was doing 3 days a week there in London. And I wanted to try out some stuff. I was trying to look in for a direction. So I was already had that in my mind, that wanted to have a greater purpose and help people. And I think that's always been within me. So working for Crisis was great, and it felt like I had balance while I was then decided I'm gonna play poker for a living. I'm gonna try and make money out of this. So, but initially it went quite well, and then all of a sudden you have like a bad month, and then you have a good month, and then a bad month, and I became obsessed with it. I really did. It in a way it kind of took over a lot, to the point where friends were like, man, you've become so boring, all you do is like talk about poker. Girlfriend at the time didn't like it, after initially loving it. So everyone loved it to start with. How's exciting, like Mark's making money playing poker, and then and then all of a sudden it's like, it's all Mark talks about is poker. But the thing is that to really, it's a very hard way to make an easy living, is one of the sayings, and I think you have to completely commit your life to it. And I wasn't willing to do that. I'm too much of a sociable person, really value my friends and this and that. So I knew that I couldn't put the effort in that it required to be a sustained professional poker player. I didn't want to sacrifice those other things that were too important to me. And so I was like, okay, but I love the game. I love the fact that, it enables me to travel as well, so I can keep up, my addiction to travel put it alongside my new addiction with poker. So I was like, okay, but this is an interesting industry. There's something going on here. So I was like, okay, well, if I can't play within it, maybe I can work within the industry. So I was like, okay, maybe this is them. So the volunteering for Crisis kind of went by the wayside. Once I finished my volunteering contract, that kind of went. I was like, I'm going to see what I can do here. And the game fascinated me on so many levels. I wasn't in it for the for the gambling side and the buzz of making money. I love the strategic element of it, and the kind of the game theory, and then when I went to play live poker for the first time and played my very first poker tournament, I was like, wow, I was like, this is such a leveler. So everyone sits down, they've got the same amount of chips, and I'm like looking around, and there's people from age 18 to 80. There's probably 5 different ethnic backgrounds here. There's a female player at the table. That person looks like he's got a bit of money. That person looks like a scruff off the street. And I'm like, but it doesn't matter, because we're all sat here, same amount of chips, and no one's got any power over anything except the luck of the way the cards fall. But then obviously then the skill element that comes in, the decisions you make along the road. And I was like, it fascinated me. So now I started really getting interested in becoming a fan of poker and the characters and the story. And this was the mid-noughties, and it was a very, very interesting time in the poker world. That there was a start of the transition. So for decades it had been dominated by these big, Texas with big hats and characters, out the back of a bar. A lot of people, they would assume poker to be. But then there was the internet completely changed the game of poker, and the fact you can learn online, you could play 10, 15, 20 tables at once if you're good enough. So suddenly you could play more hands in a month than someone previously could play live in a year, and you could learn more, you could extract the data. So then there was this transition period of, first off, it was a real defensive by the old guard, saying, these internet kids, and it was seen as a weakness. And all of a sudden these internet kids took over. So I was fascinated by the characters. And then I saw, that there was opportunities to write about it. And the club that I was playing at had an online site and an editorial site, and they needed someone to do some part-time tournament reporting. So I went along for a trial one day, and I knew I wasn't like the best writer and needed to I didn't come from journalism school or anything like that. So I've got to write on a blog. But I thought, what I can do is go in and be the most positive person, a great team member, work my socks off, and that I think, well, I was told later that had a big impact on Stephen Bartley, a really good friend of mine now, who gave me my first break. So I worked with him, and then all of a sudden I was covering the European Poker Tour. So it was like, if I could put it into football terms, it was like, learning to play football 1 year. The next year is you're going to try and make it as a pro, and then you realise, you're not quite good enough, so you're just going to go and start reporting on the Champions League like you're an expert. I was straight to that Champions League level.
Yeah, amazing.
Because really that was only where the money was. No one was really doing this career full time that much. Right. So it was very early stages of. Who says that they're a poker blogger as a career? But then I was in the right place at the right time, and the industry just exploded, exploded almost overnight. It was already huge in America, and then a huge wave of poker in Europe, loads of money pouring into it, and I was just the cream that kind of rose to the top. So all of a sudden, I was able to go play less and less and less for money, and more just going to these tournaments. So I was in Baden, and then I'd be going to Vegas every year, and it was the boom era. There was so much money floating around. There were so many incredible parties. There were celebrities everywhere, sports stars involved, and because you're the center of this like media revolution that's going on, people really like want to know you, and they want you to cover them and stuff like that. So it's super easy for me to get to know so many people, and it was a wild ride. And
what an experience.
Yeah, and then at some point, I think people then, so at that point there was very much like the written side, but then they would film it, and then it would be on Channel 4 late at night TV, and then the broadband came in, and suddenly live streaming became a possibility. So live streams started happening at these poker tournaments, and so then they needed more commentators to commentate on the live stream.
Yeah, sure.
And they were like, oh, this guy's got a gob, he knows what he's talking about. And by that point, I knew everyone, and I'd had encyclopedic knowledge of poker and results and players, and was quite well known, albeit in a niche industry. I'd really raised my profile.
Amazing.
And then so I evolved into being a poker commentator, behind a mic like this, and sitting down and just chatting about the game. I love. So comfortable I love this. This is my environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was just brilliant. Yeah. I absolutely loved it.
Again, back to I guess a little key bit to take out of that for me is, and lessons for other people, I guess, listening, is that thing of I'm in this environment. I love what this is about. Maybe that's not I'm not going to make a living out of that, so I need to. But just again, thinking in a different way, your mindset, the way it works, and thinking that in a creative way. I guess again, well, I can't do that, but I love being in this industry, so I'll just go down this path. I can create a little niche for myself there, and just having that self-belief in there. There's a problem. I can't make a living out of this professionally, or I've not got the time to dedicate to making that professional. I'm going to do X. I'm going to do this. That's such a great lesson for people to be. I mean, there's always a solution, isn't there? If you want something bad enough, there's always a solution that you can look at and go. There
is, and I think again, it's important to point out that it's very easy to look back and sort of objectively say, "Oh, you were very well aware you did this and that." And yes, there was some awareness in it, but I think what's even more important, and a lesson that I think we can all learn, is just opening yourself up to possibilities. It's opening yourself up to the universe, that allowing that space for something to come in. And so often in my life, when one door's closed, an even bigger door's opened, and it's because I've allowed that space for something to happen. So I didn't necessarily manifest exactly what I wanted, but I manifested something that would happen, and it would suit me, and I could adapt to it. And why not just dive straight in? And what's the worst that can happen? You can always change it, and don't ever regret not making a decision to try something.
I think that's it. That's the key for me, and I always talk about it myself. Like, I'd rather try something and not work out and go, oh well, you know what, and I learn from that, and then I'll go and try something else. But just be. I think as entrepreneurs, and many people I speak to, like 43rd episode or whatever we've done now, and everyone I sort of speak to, very much along the lines of just being open to opportunities. Entrepreneurs, business owners, people just open to opportunities that other people won't necessarily look for or won't see out there. And I think that's such a key thing. If you are open, like you said, that life's an opportunity, so grab it. And
big time. Yeah, big time. But I think always through the poker years, I was always thinking at some point as well, going to start a business. What ideas have I got? It's definitely at that point.
Yeah, that was it.
I was
the cogs started turning.
The cogs were turning, and there was a couple of almost startups and apps and stuff that nearly got off the ground. And I was one of these people that was into everything that was going on at these poker events. I loved it, and they used to joke that behind the scenes I was like really running things and stuff. I knew everyone, and I'd offer opinions, and if I saw a problem, I'd probably like sticking my nose in too much, right? But it's just like I couldn't help. It's like, oh well, if I love just sort of connecting dots, if it's like people or ideas and solutions, and you know, I love working in kind of mind maps in my head, and I can see, well, that's there and that can solve that problem. Have you thought about doing this, or why don't you do this? So I was always kind of innovating in a very innovative space. And because the poker industry was a bit like the Wild West in those days, it was like people were, you know, making shit up as they go along. And but it was a great environment because there was so much money around at that point. It didn't matter if mistakes were being made, and people were trying things, and you could offer your opinions. And but it got to a certain point with some other motivations built in. That was like, okay, now I need to step away from. You know, I'd reached a glass ceiling in my poker career, and I had opportunities to join one of these big gaming companies, but I never did want to, just from a really moral standpoint. You know, I was really interested in poker for the strategy, the characters, the ability that it, the opportunity it gave me to still travel. All those things were, but not the shady side of it and the grey areas. And, you know, there was so much dirty money, you know, floating through these.
I can imagine.
So I didn't want to go in and work for these big industries. You know, again, it was like I just thought I'm probably not going to last 2 months either. I'll go in and I'm so opinionated and this and that. And I tried to do it a nice way, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't think that would, like, you know, impact your ego, and that's your position in your job. And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to do something, I need to go off and
do your own
and do it my own way. Yeah.
So that's obviously then 23D. That's where that come about. Then
it did, and there was a couple of stages to kind of motivate me. Is like using my experiences, using some tough times as well to really sort of give me the boost. You know, I was flying high in my poker career, and then, you know, I lost my role on the highest profile commentary team, and it was a real sucker punch because you know, I felt like it was made for more political reasons than my talent. And you know, that team wasn't one with the greatest atmosphere. It was just like, but then instead of throwing my toys out the pram, you know, I just sucked it up, and I was like, right, how can I use this motivation? But ironically, you know, I got told that I was losing that position, and then 2 months later I won the biggest award that the industry could have given me, like 2 months later, in front of the people that had like taken me off this team. It was
wow.
You know, European Media Person of the Year award at this big like banquet dinner, and I was the only person, you know, the previous year I'd been nominated for Industry Person of the Year, and then I got shortlisted for that. But then the panel decided on the day, was like, well, we've got Marc, this media guy who's like brilliant, love what he does, but he's up against these industry heavyweights. How can we like compare somebody who runs a multi-billion-pound company or a multi-million-pound tour against little commentator Marc? So the next year they decided they needed to make a Media Person of the Year category. So it was the inaugural one. It was probably the biggest the awards have ever been, and I won it in front of like all my peers and players, and it was amazing. And I didn't rub it in their faces, you know, because we were nominated as well as a commentary team. We didn't win that. I won the individual big award.
Amazing.
And neither of the people that were left on the team had been nominated. So that was like a real boost.
Yeah, sure.
But then I was like, right, okay, you've been kicked off this. How do you use this as motivation? And I was looking at the way that poker events were being covered in terms of video content for social media. And I was like, okay, I've just looked at the TV team. They're creating content very much with the TV kind of background. For me, way overproduced. You know, why do you need 2 cameramen, a boom mic, a sound person, to go back to a separate editor, to go to someone else to decide it, to then put it out a day or 2 after the event? With the way that the live blog was, and TV viewing figures getting less and less because people were watching the live stream. People wanted this information really quickly. So I was like, there's got to be a better way to do it. It's like, why do you need a 50 grand lens on that camera to shoot something that someone's watching it on the little screen? And I was like, if I just had a really good cameraman editor alongside me, I was like, I know all the people, I know the stories, I've got the trust of all the players, you know.
Just want a big award.
I can go and find these stories. And I was like, and if we know the kind of stories we're telling, can't we just shoot to that and then turn stuff around quicker and get it out on the same day? And at the same time, I'd been then quickly headhunted for another poker tour. So I became on the Unibet poker tour, much smaller tour, smaller budget, family atmosphere. Reminded me of the early days of the EPT, which is brilliant. And there's a guy on there, David Pomeroy, who, you know, after one event of me commentating, I again did my usual thing. But this time I was like, do you mind if I see some stuff that you're doing, can, you know, improve it? And he was telling me, look, you're just consulting for free. He was like, would you come and work for us for like full time? And I was like, no, I'm not joining a gaming company. But so I got like talking to him and then describing my kind of these ideas I've got. And he goes, I love those ideas. And he goes, you've got, you know, so much to give. He was like, why didn't you just set something up? I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe I do need to do that. And so he's like, if you set something up, we'll give you your first contract. We'll get you off the ground. So, you know, so that became then the seed. It was almost another company with someone else that didn't work out in the very, very early stages. I realised this person wasn't the right person.
Yeah, sure.
And then like James Beer came into my life. I was still living in London at the time, but we had a mutual friend and I met him a few times, and I needed someone to save a documentary that we'd filmed for Unibet that hadn't gone too well with the person who was supposed to be going to be my business partner. James came in, saved the day. We reshot it. The client loved him. He just started his own production company here in Brighton, but really it was just him and his individual. And he's like, I don't want to do this on my own. He was like, I see the opportunities you've got, the ideas. I'd love to do this with you. And I was like, well, there's my cameraman and editor. And so we then formed 23 Digital as we started then. I just sold up in London as well at the same time and moved down to Brighton, and 23 Digital was born. We started working, you know, with Unibet, doing lots of stuff, and then once people started seeing the stuff that we were producing, then a lot of big players sort of came in and wanted their pound of flesh of me, and we started to go work in different tools and doing this quick turnaround content. And I paired James up with really experienced freelancers that I loved, or I've loved their work over the years. So he could really learn from them, and they knew the kind of game of poker, and we just created incredible content, like super quick turnaround with very little drop off in quality, really. Well, none that you could notice if you're watching it on your iPad or your laptop and stuff. And sort of not reinvented, but just innovated in that space, and you know, just did it in a better way.
Opportunity and going, there's a gap there. There's an opportunity again. That innovation, creativity, that you can see that and go, I'm going to create something from this and go out there and do it. Especially like you said, knowing the industry so well. I was listening to a podcast the other day, the high performance one, which I listened to quite a lot. And obviously, but Jake Humphries has got his own production company, isn't he? Whisper and they actually interviewed his business partner Sunil Patel, and that was really interesting to say. And it was a similar type of thing in that they was in the industry. They was both working in Formula One, and they wanted they felt exactly that. Like listening to your stories, exactly that we could do higher production of these things, turn it around quicker and without losing the quality. And I think and they exactly similar type of format to that, and they similar again, like where you had the Unibet thing, they got Williams I think on board early on. It's just interesting to hear the likely. I've only just listened to that episode, and listening to you talk is really interesting to see that those skills that came up as an opportunity. I believe I can do this and turn this around a bit quicker and create a business from that and an opportunity, which you obviously did. And I know obviously then it's taking you sort of 15 years and your different learnings and different experiences to go, right, I'm going to start my own business now. I've seen this opportunity and done that. I want to then move on. Like, you look at go to 2020, COVID hits, 90% of planned annual revenue in a week. Talk to me about, you've waited this long to start your own business, you've done it, and then that happens. Talk to me a little bit about your mindset then, what's going through your head.
So leading into 2020, the previous year had made a decision to diversify away from poker.
Right.
James had a young family. I'd been on the road like 15 years. We were just so much travel involved. It's like, okay, we've got an incredible body of work now. And the poker industry itself, the market became very choppy. There was a huge amount of consolidation going on. Big buys, people buying out. PokerStars got bought by Paddy Power, and there was a lot of offices closing down. People get made redundant. So it became, for a small agency like ours, too risky to try and keep going in that industry. you know, I pitched for a big contract to the same job role over a 9-month period to 3 different people within that job role, and it's like, how am I ever going to get any traction here? And the little guys, it's like, they're not worried about you. So it's like, okay, well, you know what, we've had a good vibe with this. We've got a great body of work now, crazy body of work that we've done in the first 18 months or 2 years. We were really getting into, we loved the shooting like the hospitality at event, you know, when we're at these events, like James had a real eye for like the details of buildings and the player parties and the experiences. And we thought, okay, well, we can apply this to the hospitality scene, and we can still do events just away from poker. So we can take our methodology to events in other industries, and we can really delve into food and hospitality. So we made the difficult decision to scale back down. So we got up to 5, and then in 2019, throughout 2019, we scaled it right back to James and I. And we gave up our office in Platform 9, moved to the Hove branch, and it was just me and James again, starting out. And so we were very lucky that it was super lean. We didn't have a big team and loads of overheads and stuff like that. But we were also getting very, very involved in tech and really interested in AR and VR. And we were also, leading up to March 2020, going for a £500,000 Innovate UK Smart Grant to digitalise food menus. So someone gave me the idea of like photogrammetry of food dishes. And so you could hover over a QR code and see your dish pop up in 3D. Nice. But then you could get loads of more information about as an extra display, really, about the provenance, about nutrition, allergies, all these things. That'd be a great way to really like to give more information and digitalize the end experience. But then I was like, I don't want to do this just for money. By that point, I was already like purposeful. I was like, okay, well, we could. So I talked to some people about deep data and AI, and just realized that if we get people to use that technology, we can extract really deep information and start profiling for the good, especially in big chains, people's eating habits. And then if we then fed that back to the especially the big restaurants, they would know better what people are going to order, because you'd know people's second choices, where they're going to order a pudding just by where they're looking, how they're interacting with the digital menu. They could then better plan what food they get in. We could cut down food waste. It would be good for the planet. Wow. So I had like a big NGO and a non-profit like willing to partner with me on it. I got Innovate UK, loved it, gave me a coach to work with me on it. And then all the time we were then about to niche 23D and really rebrand as like food and hospitality with a technical edge, but really content was at the heart of what we were doing. And we're still doing events. There was our day-to-day and more in Europe and in the UK. And then, March 2020, events, food, hospitality, 3 industries brought to their knees. The Innovate UK the grant application was due to go in by May. Innovate UK came back and said, look, every single money that's going to be paid out now is going to be out for innovation around COVID and how we can innovate our way out of this situation. Sure. So you've got absolutely no hope of winning it. We had a chain restaurant, small one in Brighton Semi, agreed to allow us to do real world testing. So there was no restaurants we could test because this is an R&D grant. And events, all the events that we were supposed to go and film for the rest of the year suddenly weren't happening. All the restaurants we were going to film into, Etch, like Stephen Edwards and Etch was a client of ours, all closed. So it's just like from like Tuesday to Friday, it was like, all right, this is not good.
Wow. So what then? Like, because so many people got affected by COVID in certain ways and different businesses. But you're listening to that story and you go, right. So where does your head go? Where does your mindset go at that point? And think, because the word for me that come out of COVID was probably resilience, the amount of resilience that business owners, entrepreneurs needed to show so just talk to me a little bit about your mindset around it, like what goes through your head on that day, other than shit.
Well, you go into like a state of shock to start with, and then lick your wounds, but very quickly move on. And it was like kind of looking at myself in the mirror and be like, come on, dude, you're made for this. If like positivity and resilience, this is time for you to step up now. And so James and I just like put our heads together with another kind of few people, and we were just like, right, okay, there's problems here, but problems to me just are opportunities. There's solutions. There's like, we have the chance to all that, the way we were innovating and thinking stuff like, none of it's wasted. It's like there's just new opportunities now. This is going to like change the world. We're really into tech and digital. We've got an amazing network of freelancers around us, and that was the biggest key. Our business model with 23 was keep ourselves very lean and a small team, but then to have like loads of freelancers that we would use, you know, animators, shooters, editors, and then we started talking to our clients that, you know, that we did have, and how could we help them? How could we innovate the way out? Also, what could we do just to give our time to people as well? We had a very much, you know, the hospitality action non-profit in a business in a restaurant scene were like were screwed. They were having to try and help all their members and stuff work their way through this. So we said, okay, well, let's work out how to put on like Zoom calls and stuff like that, be video calls. We can help our initial clients keep communicating. And then we had one client that was is a PR media company, and their big tent poles in terms of revenue for them were their 3-day conferences, 3rd-day award ceremony, and the award ceremony specifically, where people pay to enter these awards, was their massive revenue drivers 4 or 5 times a year. They were like ticketed and sponsored, and the next one they were supposed to be holding was in the Cipriani Hotel in Manhattan, and it's a $1,000 sit down like banquet dinner just to get there, and then like the biggest brands in the world are there to win these PR awards, and then like, we've got to find a way to still host this, and it's got to be so that we can ticket it, so it's got to be dynamic, and so we can still sponsor it. And we were like, you know what, we've got some people in our network of freelancer stuff. Let's just try and help you innovate your way out of this. So we thought, okay, we've got to put on these dynamic virtual events. So all of a sudden, before we realised and talking to our clients, we've pivoted into being a virtual event company, because that's all we could do. And we just put on the most spectacular virtual event for them. Took a month and 3 to 4 different teams, probably up to 8 people working on it. You know, green screen filming in Hong Kong and in London, creating Jason, who's in here, Jason Harding, brilliant animator and 3D animator. He recreated the Cipriani, so he created the inside of it in 3D space. He then created like 800 avatars all sat around the room, so they were like, it was like you were watching like the room, but they were little cartoon avatars.
I love that.
Did fly-throughs of the room, created all these all the acceptance speeches were pre-recorded. So rather than people turn up and find out if they won, they got to know beforehand, kept it quiet. We pre-recorded that, all those speeches on Zoom, mixed it in, and then played it out and just did this really dynamic event, some live, some online. And so then and then doing another 2 or 3 like saved us as a company. And it was a way that we could just, but we'd never done that before. Like we'd already gone to events and filmed. All of a sudden we had to bring it online, and who's out there who can help us? And
so I like a couple of things I want to take. One, again, that sense of resilience that, you know, is paramount in all entrepreneurs, and so many of us had to show that during that period. But like, just again, seizing the opportunity, looking at the problem, trying to find a solution. How do we survive? How do we get out of this? But just again, the main thing there for me, like you said, you yourself created this community of people, and reaching out to them and going, how do we make this happen, and making it happen. And that's such a brilliant for any. If any of us can get through that, like get through COVID and come out that other side, and what it looks like, just showed how much resilience and how much creativity is it within entrepreneurs and business owners, and that sense of collaboration and community. For me, there's some key things that's the key.
Collaboration, community. Let's work together, and I think there's so many important lessons, like wider lessons that we can learn from that. So
I love that. And then I want to go on. Obviously, then but for 4 months ago, then you and James decided to close 23D, and go obviously in different directions. And I know you sort of alluded to a little bit earlier about purpose-driven entrepreneur and around them sort of lines. So just let's delve into a little bit of, again, that conversation with James. why you went in that direction, and obviously now with your sort of new path now as well. Talk to me a little bit about
Yeah, so I think, you know, like a lot of people, the pandemic, when you're forced to sit and you've got more time and you can really sort of think back about what you've done, you look at the world, at the problems that are going on. I think a lot of people are like, okay, like I need to have more purpose here. I need to have, you know, a more positive impact on society. And I was like, well, you know, what can I do with, you know, my lived experiences, my network, my platform, whatever it may be, to have a bigger impact. You know, I want to be a net positive individual on society. And I was slowly, I think, getting to the point where I was willing to, having the confidence to kind of put my voice out there and just be open and authentic about the way I saw the world. So I think using like LinkedIn as you know, I started sharing some just thought leadership pieces in 2020 and just kind of really talking, not any kind of like business speak or this or that so much, little bits, but more about innovation and people and collaboration and how I saw the world, and that I felt that the business world had an opportunity and a responsibility to help us out of this situation as well. And looking at what was going on with the government and how they were handling it, it was like, well, we can't really rely on them. Business needs to step up and do stuff. And then I got introduced to a former client of mine, one of the event companies so they were a former client just because they weren't holding any events, you know. She, a co-MD of that company, saw the stuff I was writing and said, okay, we need to catch up. I'm on a bit of a similar journey here. And then we had a brilliant talk, and then she said, I really want to introduce you to Anna and Paul, who have just launched this non-profit membership community called Marc Convey. So she introduced me to them, had a brilliant chat with them. They were like, yeah, we'd love to have you in as a member. And they're some of the smartest people that I've, you know, ever been involved with. Sure. Like proper, like, not just marketeers within business, but real game changers within business. People who have founded like really big companies, people who have, you know, authors, professors on the boards of big companies, and realizing if they come together, they can use the world of business to market and to change things. So I very quickly made them a pro bono client of 23D. I wanted to support them because they needed some help with editing and stuff. And then I just threw myself into the community and the different things that we were working on. So every month there'd be sort of digital fireside chats or things called exchanges where they'd get someone on and interview them. So they managed to get Seth Godin on, who's one of my kind of icons, like the godfather of modern day marketing. And he came on for 90 minutes and was just like unbelievable. Wow. But then we have these things called Coffee with a Cause as well, where a member will bring a charity or a non-profit to the table, and they've got some problems and they need to get through it. And if you feel like it's something you can help with, you jump on the session. They kind of state the help that they need and the situation's going on. Then we all put our brains together, and they just basically get 10 or 15 like high-level consultants working on them, opening up their networks, creating working groups from that afterwards. So there's all these different things going on, projects that we're helping and working on. And that was brilliant because I felt like I was having an impact, but it was having an impact on me personally as well, and realizing not only did I actually feel like I was belonging in these circles, but I felt like I was shining in these circles with some of the things that I was saying and the reactions I was getting from people. And I was like, okay, maybe I do need to believe myself a bit more. Maybe I'm, you know, a bit more than a poker player and someone who's like, you know, survived and thrived through trauma. And it's like, maybe I do now have a voice that I can use for the greater good. But I didn't know what that was going to be, and felt like, you know, I went down the path of, you know, really wanting to inspire businesses to do better and help us recover from the pandemic. And I thought, okay, I can rebrand 23D to be the video agency that helps those companies show off the good that they're doing, make them an employer of choice going into the future, and all these things. And I thought maybe that will fulfill some of this need for having a greater purpose I could have. So we did all that, grew the team, but I still wasn't quite there. I was getting frustrated really with the sort of exec level people that I was, you know, chatting to, and then I just thought, you know what, Mark, you're trying to go in and convince them to be the game changers, and then you're trying to service them, and then why don't you just become the game changer yourself? And it's so I was just like, okay, so this was like now to the end of 2021, and we had a really stressful end of the year 2021 within 23D. We got a load of kit robbed and a job in London, and it was after the very best day that we had that year, and then we got our kit robbed.
Because we was at a lunch or something not long after that happened.
Yeah,
didn't we? But I remember, you saying about
and it was really stressful, and I think it like really definitely impacted James as well. And I felt like the momentum that we'd built up through the year, it chopped us down at the knees.
Yeah,
and then I think we didn't quite have at that point, maybe because we're taking so many blows and knocks, and we kept going, and you get going and you pivot and you do these things and you think you're getting it right, and then you grow the team, you have more stress on that, and then bang, it chops you down. So sort of stumbled a bit mentally and physically into Christmas, where I finally had like 2 weeks to sit and think, and it was lockdown going on, so I couldn't go and see my family in London because they were in a different tier. So I'd like one day at Christmas, and then I just like sat lay in my flat, and I just thought, and I didn't go into a depression. I was just going deep into myself and really trying to figure out. I was like, you know what, you've done this before, kiddo. You can try and figure out. And so I just almost incubated and thought, you know what, I think I've taken 23D as far as I can. I need to spread my wings. I feel like I can have an impact, and actually I feel like I'm restricted now in the company that I've created. But also I kind of look back at the way that I'd been the driving force about the rebranding and a new messaging and this and that, and I was like, is it really fair on me to try and use the resources of 23D to scratch that itch, to have that greater purpose, if it's just not the right vehicle? There's other people involved here. Who's going to stand up and say to you, Mark, even though you went through all these branding sessions, that maybe, Mark, this is your time to move away? When I funded and bankrolled and formed the company, and James was like, no one's going to be brave enough to do that to me. So I was like, I've got to make this decision. So I came back in January of this year and said to my senior management team, like Carolina and James, I was like, you know what, this is what I'm thinking. I don't know what it is. I think I've taken it as far as I can. And they were like, for all the reasons I've just said, we completely agree with you. We can see that. So I was like, okay, well, I've no idea what I'm going to do, but I know I need to just jump off this train for a bit. So immediately I went non-exec director, and we said, okay, we're going to try this for 3 months. And I said, right, okay, I'm taking myself off to Wales. I'm just going to slow things down. So I went and rented a friend's house on the edge of Snowdonia National Park. And the only thing the team said to me was, just record some videos to LinkedIn. Just talk from the heart about your thought process and what's going on. Let your network see what we see from you every day, what people in this building see from you every day, and just see what happens. I thought, okay, well, I'll do that. And then that could be a precursor to starting a podcast or somewhere to get my voice out there. But really, I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I went off for 3 weeks, slowed things right down, went out and just walked through the woods, and gone talking to camera and stuff like that. And
I've seen some of it,
James got it together, and then I did 2 or 3 of those, and they just blew up. And I was like, oh my word. And they led to to incredible conversations with different people who was opening up new networks with me, and the feedback I was getting was incredible. But also, I opened up that space in my mind to really kind of allow other things in. Running an agency, and I'm such an empath as well that I put other people's needs before myself, and you kind of lose yourself a bit. And I felt like once we moved away from poker, I'd maybe lost my identity a bit. And also I had like a massive shift in energy while I was away in Wales. It was like almost if this 30-year journey of me kind of not running away from the accident that happened to me at 14, but I was like, wow, you've had an amazing ride now. And it was like I just stopped and paused. And if I think of it visually, I imagine the scene in Forrest Gump where Tom Hanks is running, and he's running and running and running, and doesn't really know why he's running, and he's not really running away from anything. He's just running, and he's thinking. And then one day he's in the middle of the desert, and he just stops, and he turns around, and there's just all these people behind him. And I stopped, I think, in January this year, and I turned back, and just for the first time really kind of looked back with great pride in, bloody hell, Mark, you've actually done all right, and you've achieved quite a lot. And I stopped. But then it was just all the people behind me, that I've gathered along the way, and the incredible network I had. And I was like, okay, you've now got into that place in life where you're not going to do something purposeful because you feel like you need to justify what's happened to you. I felt like over those 30 years got everything that I needed back from life to finally even up the score with what the universe had thrown at me when I was 14. And honestly, I got a physical reaction. I've never had that in my life. Like, my whole body was tingling. It was like, wow, okay, this is now a moment for you to move on, whatever it's going to be. You know, I started coming up with ideas for festivals and nature for young people, and kind of empowerment and disrupting the rites of passage. A couple of those ideas that we touched on earlier. So I came back from Brighton, from Wales to Brighton, feeling like a completely different person. And I got back and I was manic for a week, and I was whiteboarding all these ideas. And it was just flooding out of me. But I kind of got back into that just crazy business manic, and then
it's hard though, because we constant. Again, there's that narrative out there around, to be successful, to do what you're going to do, that we've got to keep chasing, and you're on that treadmill, and I'm guilty of it myself so much, and you go, I'm going to get there, and you keep going, because that's where, if you're busy, you're doing all right. But like you said, to take that step back, look within inside yourself, and actually, why am I doing? What am I chasing?
Yeah,
like, it's interesting to hear you talk about looking at the trauma from when you was 14, and over the last 30 years, not necessarily, but actually wanting something back from the universe. This is taking something away, and I'm going to try and find. But actually getting to that point in your life where you go, okay, I'm at peace with that now.
Yeah,
I've accepted it, and now this is my next
definitely venture. I think a lot of people, and rightly or wrongly, and this is not for me to judge, are driven by something bad that's happened in their lives, and it motivates them to want to set up a charity to help people go through what they've been through. And I think that's fine and well, but I also think that it can become a bit too personal to you, and you can't have that objectivity over what you're doing. So I felt really empowered by the fact that I've gotten to a place in my life where I'm not doing this because of what I went through. I'm doing this because I am who I am right now, and I want to have a bigger impact. So that was super key to me. And for years, people were saying to me, like my mum and other people, God, you've got to write a book, you've got to do this and that, you've got to, because, I've helped a lot of people over the years, but on unofficial kind of small ways, and given them perspective on life, and that's made me super proud. But I wasn't ready, I was still just out there living life, and I didn't want any of that to be a motivation to do these things. And I've always had a real interest in what's going on the inside of people. I'm very, very lucky that my trauma, for better or worse, is on the outside, and that's a superpower of mine in terms of how we make connections with other people. The hardest thing to do sometimes when you're feeling down about something or you need help is to take that first step and ask for help. And then if you do that, then you build that connection with someone. You have that level of they have that level of empathy with them. I never have to have that conversation. Whenever I meet someone, I've had to develop some skills to take control of the social situation, to put people at ease, and I learned that very early on, that I had to do that. I need to take control of the situation, put you at ease. That's when my quick wit is like developed, and come from make a joke and get people relaxed in my company, so then they can see the real me and not just the label that they think they see and the level of sympathy. But the fact that they come to me already with that level of sympathy and empathy, the hardest steps are already done. So therefore, I've never really been that interested in really going back and helping people what I've been through. I've been always really interested in trying to help that person in the corner who to all intents and purposes and the labels that we put on society looks like that they're the perfect human being, but just below the surface they're suffering and they don't know how to ask for help, and everything should be going well with them. And so a lot of that kind of thought process was going through my mind earlier this year. It's like, right, now I want to really help people on the inside and their inside out way of thinking, and kind of shift the dynamics and the perspective that people have on life, and look at themselves more objectively and realize that the answers are there within them, and then hopefully create tools. So I really was starting to just move into that well-being space, but I didn't know, even at that point, what it was.
What a lovely space to be in, that you've got to that point in your life where you're at, but actually going with the freedom to look at that next step with a completely open mind, going, I'm not actually, I know where I sort of think I want this to go, but I'm just going to roll with it and almost like let the universe do what it's going to do, and just because you believe deep down, like you said, you've analysed or looked at yourself over the last 30 years since the trauma, or your life as a whole, and then you've got to a point in your life where you go, okay, now I'm ready to share different experiences, and you've got all of these different experiences as well. I guess that's again the key, that some people, they go, even at a young age, you go, I'm going to do all this, but haven't actually had those experiences to then be able to go and help people or support and do more things, I guess. Yeah,
Definitely. It's not like I'm going to ignore all the kind of the learnings and the lived experiences and stuff, but I'm not motivated by those things to now want to do good, to fill in some void. I've filled in that void. That void's gone. I feel more centered than I've ever been. Amazing. And it's a great solid foundation to build from.
Space to be,
but I still had no idea what was going. I came back and I was manic and this and that, and I got some brilliant advice from Steve, one of the experts here. So in Plus X is a brilliant building. We get this wraparound support and these experts that come in and give you sessions, and the leadership coach called Steve Charlton has been brilliant for me for the last 6 months. And I showed him my idea, and I think he could sense I was just quite manic, and he was like, just let it simmer. He's like, just remember, you've just gone away, by slowing things down, by not chasing anything, just by putting yourself out there to the world a bit more, suddenly all these things are just coming towards you. Why are you now coming back? And it was like, Brighton doesn't equal busyness. And it was almost like, Mother or Nature was listening, because then the next week I got contracted shingles, and then the week after I got COVID for the first time, which turned into long COVID. So all of a sudden I just didn't have the energy anyway. For me it was like, I was like, this is nature reminding me just to slow down. So I would just I just let these ideas that I was having, around how young people simmer. I was reading lots, journaling, and having conversations, and putting no pressure on myself. And I just opened myself up to the universe, and a couple of amazing people came into my life, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I just want to cover off what you said before about the decision to shut down 23D with James. So during that period, he had a go at working on the business rather than in the business, and did that for a few months. And then we came to a very interesting juncture with another great thing during 2020. A very lucky thing is we won a big contract with UK Power Networks. It's a big utility company on a 3-year deal. So we won a 3-year tender, which is brilliant. It wasn't really the direction that we were planning on going in, but you don't look a gift horse in the mouth in the middle of the pandemic. You take on that. And the work we've done for them had been so successful, and Ofgem for their next regulatory periods were changing the need for stakeholder engagement and them to be much more open about the work that they were doing and what they're trying to do for the environment and all these different things. So all of a sudden their need for video content and documenting what they were doing was now a requisite for them to be able to earn revenue. And we were only working for one department at that point. So they said, even though you've got 15 months left of your contract, we're going to reissue the tender, and it's going to be much bigger. So we were too small to be able to have won that. So then at that point, I'd already got to the point we were talking to people that I can't even be non-exec director. If I'm really going to give my all to whatever this new direction is, I need to step away and just draw a line underneath that chapter in my life. So I thought, okay, well, we can sell potentially my 50% into a bigger company. James and the whole creative team go in together in partnership. They go after this big contract. Great. But it wasn't really what James wanted to do in terms of the type of work. And effectively, if we had won that contract, he would have been a one client kind of agency, right? We would have been almost an external agency of UK Power Networks. They were so big, they would have dominated us. There wouldn't have been any space or creativity. And all the stuff I'd been talking about at the beginning of the year, putting out there on LinkedIn, saying how it's really important and we have to invest in our individuals. And this year's not going to be about growth for 23D. It's going to be about, after a couple of tough years, really investing in the individuals within the company, what it means for them. I'd taken the step back to go non-exec director. So when James said, like, this is not what I want to do, I can't then turn around and say like no. So then we just looked at each other and we were like, yeah, well, you know what, I've had a good run, 5.5 years, brilliant. I'm already off, like, got this new direction, and we'll come into it in a second with my new thing. And James, with his young family, just had the opportunity to take on a couple of our smaller clients as a freelancer, just be a freelancer and be able to manage his day, just him, be a more present partner and dad. And you know, I can't turn around and just say, well, just because there's money on the table, that it's like, no, it's just I've got to live and breathe what I'm preaching. Otherwise, I just immediately in that moment lose my authenticity.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Because there's that period, I guess, in your head around that, like, it's such a tough thing. I've closed a business and I've taken decisions to walk away in it, and it's a tough thing to do, but at the same time, it's such a brave thing to be able to, because we can get caught up in, I know that it's not right, I know I need to go in a different direction, but you're constantly drawn into, for whether it's responsibility to other people or whatever that is, you're constantly drawn in. But it's such a brave thing to be able to take that step back and go, you know what, let's draw a line, let's call it a day, and you go on to that next venture. And knowing, do you look back, or I just want to ask one thing, do you look back at 23D as with an element of as a failure, or how do you view it after closing it? Do you look back at it as a failure?
I mean, no, I don't really. I think
because someone closing a business would be that potentially. I look at I talk about me closing a salon as a failure, but I think mine was for certainly different reasons, potentially for you. But I think I'm just interested around that mindset, around that thought process. Do you look at that as that's just, I've done what I could with that business? Because what I was at peace with when I closed the salon was I knew that I'd done the best I could at the time with everything I had, and I'd give it all I could, and it was just the right time for me to close it. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't look at it as a failure. I believe it was just a stepping stone, and the lot of difficulties we had were things that happened outside of our control, were mistakes made, obviously. But if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. And I think it gives you an opportunity to learn. And I now look back at 23D just from my own like personal career development as the perfect stepping stone to go on to do what I'm going to do next. You know, before that I had an unbelievable network, but it was all within gambling and the gaming industry. And I needed to learn more about the power of video with storytelling and how we communicate. I needed to start a business completely like unaware of what it took to run a business, and learn the hard way what I liked and what I didn't like, so that if I was then going to do something again, knowing what I was really good at and focusing on my strengths, and then really going for that, which is what I'm going to do this time. So I'm really grateful for all the tough times we had, the resilience that we had to build up. And it also meant that it drove me down here to Brighton, and I don't think I could be in a better city in the world in terms of trying to create a well-being organisation, which is what I'm going to do, well-being non-profit, because of the open-mindedness of people down here, the want and the need to want a better way, innovative and just lovely people, really are. So I would have had none of that. I wouldn't have been able to make a mark in the local business scene, to grow my profile in a way that now I'm going to ask people to like follow me and to join what I'm doing and to create a different way of thinking. And I couldn't have done any of that without 23D. And if a 23D had become a success rather than a failure, then I wouldn't be feeling so incredible about what I'm going to try and do going forward. So,
mate, what a brilliant answer, and thank you for sharing openly like that, because it's a brilliant way to answer that question, actually. So thank you for that. That's amazing. And look, and it leads us on to talk to me, Thrive Now.
Yeah, Thrive Now.
Talk to me. Tell me about it.
So I'm kind of like lying in my bed, like, afternoon's tired, and like thinking of this this idea that I had, this festival in nature for young people, get them away from the urban and the digital environment, get them to fall in love with the very thing that we're asking them to save. While we've got to engage, how do we build up their resilience and their positivity, and kind of give them the tool set that they need to really become the generation that we need them to be. In this Seth Godin interview that I mentioned earlier with Marketing Kind, come January, the one thing that stood out for me when I was walking around, you know, Waterfall in Wales or whatever, is like it kept coming back to me that he was saying that him being a boomer himself, that the 50-year domination of baby boomers is over, and it's been fast forwarded by the pandemic, and the most important generation coming through since then are Gen Z, and they're going to write the rules for the next half century of society. But then I was looking at them thinking, geez, like, look at the era that they've grown up in, from, you know, the banking crisis into austerity, into the division and economic fallout of Brexit, to a global pandemic, like all the time in like 24-hour news part of their life and social media. And then, you know, we just put this massive blanket over the top of the climate emergency. And then we're like, well, they're not as resilient as in my day, and all this, and they've got a soft underbelly. And I'm like, you wonder why? Like, come on, us older generations, like, we've helped create this society that's made them feel like that. Every action has a reaction. Don't judge them. Let's empathize with them. Let's help them. Let's give them the tool sets that they need to become the generation that we need them to be coming through, and to save this bloody planet that we're living on. So I was coming up with ideas around that, but I felt like, God, they're also really ideological, and God, this would take a lot of money, and I've never done this before. And it's like, I can see it, but how am I going to make this happen? And I was like, I put the cart before the horse a little bit, and it was like, then the universe like brought a horse like towards me and attached it to the cart. So the very last thing that 23 did pro bono for Marc Convey was their very last Coffee with a Cause event. It was their first ever hybrid one. It's the first time that Marc Convey members, because it was all set up mostly during the pandemic, had come together. We met in London, and there'd been a chap that I'd seen on a previous exchange, and he'd interviewed someone, this guy called Arunjay, and I was like, something when he was on the screen interviewing, he wasn't even like the star of the feature of this interview, but he was there asking questions, and I just like, something like just attracted me to him. I was like, I like the way this guy talks, I like the way this guy thinks. So I looked him up online and realised he was in the fintech inclusion space. He used to work in banking, originally from India, Trinidad and Tobago, ended up in London, turned his back on banking, and was trying to figure out new ways of like financial systems for the poorest billion people in the world. And then he mentored a lot of people, and it's like, something about this guy is like, I need to chat to him. So I booked talking with him that you could do on his website, but then COVID fatigue hit in that day and I had to cancel it. And then he was there 3 days later at this hybrid event, because he was also a Marc Convey member. And I saw him, and I said, I'm really sorry, I was supposed to speak to you on Tuesday, COVID, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, no worry, what did you want to talk to me about? He's like, well, who are you and what do you do? It's like, oh, well, running this company, 23D, my team are in there producing it, but I've taken a step back, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, oh, hit me with your kind of elevator pitch. So I told him about these ideas that, I had, and he was like, wow. He goes, I love those ideas. And there was a couple of things that I dropped in that people had told me that week. And I don't know why I put them in the elevator pitch. It was about franchising it and buying land, for it. And he was like, that and that, no, don't like them. He goes, that's too much about money and capitalism, and this feels like something different. And I go, oh, no, Arunjay, I think big, but then, I like to scale things back a bit. He goes, no. He goes, those things I don't like. He goes, in terms of thinking big, he goes, my friend, you're not dreaming big enough. And he goes, I can help you dream bigger. And I'm like, all right, who the hell is this guy? I've done some research on him, but I didn't expect that reaction. He goes, make sure you book a chat back in with me. I need to talk and tell you about some stuff I'm doing as well. I'm like, okay. And then we'd be going to the hybrid event, and halfway through he's like, sorry, I've got to leave for a meeting, and he leaves. And I'm like, cliffhanger. The next day I'm going on a little 10-day R&R trip around the UK just to try and get some energy back, and just, because I've been feeling so fatigued. So it's like 2 weeks before I spoke to him again, and like jumped on a call, and after 2 minutes he was like, Mark, I have to stop this conversation and put a caveat in like right now. And I'm like, oh God, now what? And then he picked up on the two things, the franchising and land, and he was like, I didn't like those things. He's like, tell me, what is this about for you? What are your motivations for this? And I was, is this about money for you? And I was like, no, this is about sense of purpose, a richness on the inside, all this. And he goes, great, I thought so. Let's crack on and talk. So he then started talking to me and made me realise that he was leaving a lot of his fin inclusion like endeavors, and he'd done 3 different startups and exited them. One of them ended up selling to Twitter. One of his projects he was working on, he got funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh, wow.
So he's kind of real heavyweight in that space. And he was also working for the UN and a UN advisory board, so it was day job. But he goes, so we talked about my ideas and loved them, but I was like, oh, they're a bit ideological and this and that. And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to tell you about some stuff that I'm up to now. He'd been working with this purposeful leadership coach called Nicole Dubois for the previous 18 months. And, he came from a wealthy background in India and felt like, he was very much won the lottery postcode, and a lot of what he was trying to do in the world was to fill that void in.
Yeah.
But it was very much an outside in way of thinking out there, how can that solve here? Yeah. What she does is, she helps with people is to help them shift that focus and an inside out way of thinking.
Yeah.
A thinking of abundance, a mindset of abundance rather than a mindset scarcity, kind of detaching from the matrix in this 3D world that we live in, and realize that all these external things just don't mean anything if you get the kind of the center, the right, and you get yourself from a real kind of stable position. Yeah. Then you can kind of take on the world and wherever it throws at you.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of sensed in me, and then that through my kind of like lived experience and stuff like that, I'd gotten to myself to that place and that same energy.
Yeah.
Come January, I didn't know what to do with it. And so he finished working with Nicole for, I think, the previous November, and then they had a catch-up call in November. And at that point, I think Nicole's teachings had such an impact on Arunjay. He was like, why is this like not more widespread? It's like, and he goes, I think one day we're gonna do something together on this, like Nicole. And then she's like, well, why not today? And they like kind of looked at each other, and they were like, okay, well, let's start thinking about this. Should we throw some ideas around? So they start throwing some ideas around, and the idea of Thrive Now came about. And then a month later, I come into their lives, and Arunjay said that that day that he went up to London, he's like, he never goes into London anymore, because somehow he just woke up and was like super excited to go into London, like it was just meant to be. And then he met me anyway, so we jumped on that call, had a chat. He told me about all these ideas, and he goes, look, Mark, you can keep all autonomy over your ideas. I love them. I'll help you as much as I can. But we can maybe look to bring your ideas a bit closer to some of the ideas that we've got. And I'm like, okay. He goes up, first steps, I'd love you to meet Nicole.
Yeah.
How about next Monday, us 3 jump on another call and chat about it. I was like, cool, like absolutely. And he goes, if you don't mind, in the meantime, I'm going to share some documents with you this week. He goes, I'm writing a book about this journey that I've been on.
Yeah.
Got the chapter summary. I'd love to share them with you. We've got brand guidelines, mock-up of our first homepage, script for video. Can you just comment as much as you want on them, and then we'll discuss them next Monday, and we'll just, see where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
Some, lying in my bed that week, just spent hours on it, and I'm just like, wow, I kind of like completely get this. The chapter summary is incredible. I feel so aligned, like morally, with this guy and what our intentions are. So I just spent hours commenting away, and then I get an email on the Friday from Nicole, and she's like, I know I'm meeting you on Monday, but she goes, I couldn't wait until the weekend. I've just been reading the comments and all the documents, and they just make my heart melt, and I can't wait to meet you on Monday. I was like, for someone who's feeling fatigued, that's exactly the shot I needed. I was just floating through the weekend.
Wow, amazing.
Fast forward to Monday, we jump on a call, and they start telling me, we start sharing our stories and this and that, and the idea that they've got. And the coach is Nicole is a coach, and she's got this philosophy, this kind of inside out way of thinking, and she wants to now, she's getting to the, she's in her late 50s. She wants to get to the point where now she wants to spread her word a bit more.
Yeah.
And Arunjay, this is kind of maybe the thing that he was looking for, to really feed into how can we have, a positive impact on, the business world and well-being within people, and really help corporations and reimagine what well-being means, but from this real centered point of an inside-out way of thinking, this real stability. And they're like, no one's really doing this, so we need to do this together. And so we've got someone who's got like incredible, and Arunjay's also like a futurist as well, right? So he's reimagining ways that capitalism can be tweaked, how we can include as many people in society as we can, how can this work within business, different business models. And then we've got Nicole, who has all this knowledge, built up over 20, 30 years, and it's sat on the shelf, and it just needs to be repackaged and reworked in the right way for modern day businesses. And then I come along with these ideas to really want to help sort of younger people and stuff like that. But it kind of goes back to where I was with 23D and wanted to go in and help businesses become game changers, stuff like that. We've got to help the people within the businesses. Before that, I can't rock up and expect these people to do that. So I was like, okay, so what we could do is have an impact and create this new way of doing business by helping companies like humanize themselves by really investing in the individuals within their company. And this goes like just beyond this inside out way of thinking, everything but like EDI and mental health and physical health and all these different almost like modules. But if at the heart of it is that it comes from this inside out way of thinking, then this could be really, really impactful. And what we could do is try and change the face of business and create somewhere where then we can then go back and help younger people, and they can support what we're doing, and we connect these two halves. But obviously what a lot of what we're trying to do as well is it's not just about the companies that need to step up and help the individuals. It's also about working with individuals to realise that they need to step up, and their own well-being starts with them. And then I can kind of bring my own story into knowing that, and the answers are found on the inside. And yes, I was able to come out of these like traumatic experiences, and collectively we're going through so much trauma, so collectively we can come out of this together. But it starts with you. But then if you then collaborate with an amazing workspace that's given you the tools and the opportunity, all of a sudden you're taking responsibility of your own well-being. But you've got a workplace that finally is not doing any greenwashing or well-being washing. We're going to give them the right tool sets, take it away from HR, corporate well-being. And I don't want to say programs, like services, because programs means there's a start and an end. So that's the one thing that we want to really think outside of the box. This is like, should be an ongoing support service for individuals in the company. Hopefully this will help with the great resignations and quiet quitting and people reaching burnout and all these things. But individuals, you've got to step up and really take control of your own right. But we'll smooth the pathways for you, give you the support you need, give you the tool sets that you need. And I find it quite sad but inevitable that young people have to put an awful lot of labels on themselves these days to one, because they're struggling to find their place in societies, so it's completely understandable. So they're putting on a label to find their tribe, to give themselves a sense of identity. But we've got to be careful that individuals don't weaponize those labels to stop themselves doing the work that they need to do. We want to help companies realize that we want to create high performance individuals, not high performance employees. So individuals, if you look at it holistically, can make them happy in all areas of their life, and then they're naturally going to be high performing employees. But we also have to empathize with the people at the top of organizations. They're a bit lost, they're a bit like, well, we feel like what we're doing right, we need that support, but we're getting people in and we're doing these courses, they can get access to the car map, whatever it may be. What else more can we do? So there's a gap building, and we want to try and fill in that gap and try and bring people together. It's all about collaboration, inside out way of thinking, detaching from the matrix's 3D world, and having that sense of objectivity over your own life, and building that community of well-being. And then hopefully then that will have the kind of ripple effect that we want in society, that will eventually help the planet thrive.
Mate, Mark, thank you so much. Well, I'll tell you what, in honesty, listen, like I said, I've been following you on, we've known each other for a while, I've followed you on social, and I've obviously seen a little bit about what Thrive It Now is about, and moving it forward. And I think it's something that's really needed, and by the sounds of it, you're certainly in that place, to get to that place in yourself, inside, and so obviously surrounded yourself with people on the same path. That is something that's needed within society, if I'm being honest. And I think I certainly, mate, I'll wish you every success with it, and I'm sure it's going to be incredible. So
thank you.
It's been such an amazing, I knew it would be, that's why I was so excited to obviously get you on. I knew it would be an amazing conversation, and thank you so much for just obviously being so open and honest as well, and sharing obviously from from your trauma right through to where you are now, and everything sort of in between as well, and so many life lessons, I guess, not just business lessons, but life lessons that so many people will be able to take away from it. Certainly I know I will. So mate, I'm really grateful for you coming on and sharing. Look,
I'm really grateful that you gave me such a safe space to be able to talk. I'm kind of got to that point in my life where I'm ready to to open up and share it all in a holistic way of kind of thinking. So to have like such a safe space and someone brilliant to open up to, was like, thank you for playing a part in that.
Oh, you're a star. So look, we're going to finish, as always, we're going to finish with quick fire questions. I've got a couple for you here. So one piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
See, now I'm going to be controversial, and like I wouldn't give any advice. I think, you know, at that age and all through life, you're supposed to not know. You're supposed to make mistakes, and you're supposed to the unknown. You need to embrace the unknown and know what's going to happen and back yourself. So I wouldn't really give any advice to myself. I'd be like, just keep going, kid. You're going to be fine. Kind of thing is like, no advice.
Love it. Who has been your biggest inspiration throughout your journey, and why?
I think it's probably got to be my mum. You know, so I think boys have a special relationship with their mum, but you know, having someone who is just, you know, I know you like, obviously, oh God, your mum's obviously going to like give up everything to look after you, but then how she then supported me and empowered me and realised that at a young age, and then how I'm really proud of the way that she's kind of, you know, developed as a human being as well, and also kind of managed to learn through this experience and shake off some of the shackles of, you know, a different kind of upbringing. And she's very much like now in our family the kindest, most empathic woman that you could ever imagine. And it's just not me and my siblings, but my first cousins and stuff, as someone that we look up to as the kind person of her generation. And she's incredibly strong and resilient as well. So yeah, it would be my mum.
Love that. Final one. Could you recommend a business book or podcast for our listeners that has had an impact on you in your career?
Yeah, I would say book is just book I read. I was reading this year in January is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. So it's really about our relationship with time and how we can use it. And it might sound a bit like morbid that, oh my gosh, like on average you've only got 4,000 weeks on this journey, but it just makes you reevaluate the time. And if I had to pull out something from that book that sticks with me, is that he had the thing that he wants to get rid of the fear of missing out, FOMO, and replace it with the joy of missing out, JOMO. So it's all these external things that are going on in the world that your friends might be doing, that you might be seeing on social media, blah blah blah. You know, you create that fear of missing out, and you're thinking, if you're in that constant state of mind, then you're not living in the now and in your own life. You know, like right now, the most important person in the world to me is you, because there's no one else who's in my world at this moment, right? So if all these other things that we can see around the world and you can ignore them, it means you have time to focus on yourself and the here and now and make the most of this moment. And that's really what living is. So rather than fearing everything, is just having that joy. So now it's like, I love it when I'm missing. And I'd like had so much FOMO when I was younger. I was like, I wanted to be in everything, and I wanted the biggest slice of the cake. I wanted to be at every activity, be on every school trip, do this, do that. I'm so jealous of everyone. And now I'm just like, I have nothing to do. It's brilliant, because then I can just like focus on me and what I'm doing. And so I think a lot of lessons from that book.
Wow, amazing. What be present, I guess that's the key thing. It's something I'm conscious of a lot, actually, and it's something I heard you talk about that in one of your videos when you was walking in the Downs about that, and I heard that about JOMO, and that's really fascinating, because it is certainly, from my point of view, I think something I'm trying to look at myself and talk about is always trying to be present, especially with a young family, and whatever I'm doing at that time, just making sure I'm 100% at that moment, being present. And that's something. And
don't future plan, you know, well-being, and future plan good times, and future plan this, because life gets in the way, and you just keep pushing it further and further away, and you never get there. You've got to realise that it's also so important to just live in the moment. And why can't your life be in balance now that you're putting your well-being and your positivity and everything just into this moment?
Mate, what a great way to finish. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And that, as they say, is a wrap.